I'm Elissa Frankel, she's Carol Bossert, and before we start, I just wanted to give a shout out to Coven because this talk literally would not have happened without him. Thanks to a talk we had at AAM. Folks, I have some bad news. We are trapped. Conversations about inclusiveness in museums are too often trapped in outdated and outmoded frameworks that limit what we can do between museums and our audiences. So, traditionally, museums have operated on what we're referring to as a deficit model, where the museum defines its value by what we create and by what we produce. The museum produces, the audience takes in. And we don't particularly care about what the audience has to say, right? It is just enough for us to be able to say, we think this is what they need, they have some deficit that we need to fill, we're going to push all of our stuff out to the audience. Well, about 15 years ago, we determined that that wasn't working so well. So we moved a little bit further to the transactional model. Woo, yay us, transactional model. In the transactional model, it's basically whatever the museum is willing to sell for whatever the audience is willing to buy. And so audiences kind of go out of this passive recipient mode. But instead of actually bringing them in as full partners, it's still two different groups working almost at cross purposes. That you have the museum over here producing what it thinks the audience wants, the visitors saying, okay, this is what we want, this is what we can create in your spaces. But it's not enough. We still have this duality between what the audience is and what the museum is. So folks, we posit tonight that we need a new model. Woo! We need a model that values co-creation and empathy. We need a model that breaks down the divide between museum and visitor, and most importantly, we need a model that breaks down the divide between the on-site and the online. We're proposing tonight a model in which we are reaching out to our visitors to truly work with them, not just to be there for them, but to have them be part and parcel of everything that we do in our work in museums. Gretchen Jennings, who's the champion of the empathetic museum, often talks about this as institutional body language, the unspoken ways in which we either create or destroy inclusiveness in our museums, by not just the lip service that we pay to ideas of inclusion, but by the infinitesimal things that we don't say, that either say, audience come in, or audience stay away. So tonight, Carol and I are proposing to you a conversion model of museums. In this model, the barrier between the audience and the museum breaks down. And instead of being focused on the museum's value, we're now focused on the value to society. What can we create together? We take as our example the national park. When you go to a national park, you might visit the visitor center. But you don't go to a national park to visit the visitor center. No, you go to the National Park Visitor Center to get your map. You lace up your boots, you grab your map, you go out, and you experience the park with those tools.
So, that may be the best part of the night. So the conversion model then puts visitors, the museum as a visitor center. Sometimes the museum will lead, sometimes the museum will follow. It will focus primarily not on driving the conversation, but on responding to it. This puts visitors in the position of being active participants. And as they engage with the museum, they change the experience for the visitors who come next. And just like the Breck commercial, on and on and on. The conversion model breaks down the barrier between on-site and off-site learning. It doesn't matter. The visitor's experience will change. Now, what do we really mean by conversion? Close your eyes for a moment. I'll still be here. And think about your mission statement. What does your mission statement say about your relationship to your audience? Now open your eyes. This mission statement is a real mission statement from the Derby Museum Trust. It validates the conversion model. It puts the museum in the position of being the visitor center for the world. Now, the metrics for the success of the conversion model doesn't look at numbers, doesn't look at costs. It looks at the actions that visitors take once they have left your museum. The museum experience is well beyond the doors. Now, the final thing that I'd like to say is that in the conversion model, the word audience doesn't work anymore. They have been freed from being passive consumers to now being buddies, fellow travelers. So Elissa and I have presented this model to you, and we hope that it builds a framework and a vocabulary that we can discuss throughout this conference and through the next year to provide a better relationship between museums and their visitors.